Hi everybody, this is Tim at Broken Dice, bringing you another little video in my series on the indirect approach in strategy and tactics. This video we're going to take a look at the Battle of Austerlitz. In my opinion, one of the greatest examples of the indirect approach. And let's get into this. First off, let's go over my criteria for an indirect approach. Okay, as I said, I've got my inspiration from Lydell Hart's book on strategy, and I've been fascinated by this topic for a very long time. Um, so as I read it, I've kind of narrowed it down to three things I'm looking at that makes a successful indirect approach. One, transitioning from a disadvantaged position to an advantage position. In other words, if I find myself facing a fortified position, and I can just kind of move around it and attack it to where it's not straight up, then that meets that movement criteria. Not forcing a river crossing that's defended, battering your way through a defended mountain pass and stuff. Now, obviously, through history, there's been all kinds of examples where these are the things that have to be done, that the indirect approach is not an option. But for the most part, to be part of a successful indirect approach, you have to have this. And then two, in that movement, you disbalance the opposing force. If if you move and it creates no reaction in the opposing forces, well, one, if they're blind and you've disbalanced them through your movement and their inability to move, or your movement creates a condition in which they feel they need to respond with movement, and that movement changes their tactical or strategic stance. In other words, you have created a situation in which someone had preferred to be very defensive, and now you've created a situation where they have to become offensive in nature and in tactical approach. Or they've been very offensive. They are attacking, and that's what they're good at, i.e., let's just say the Mongol armies, for example. If you can make them become defensive, that's a disbalancing characteristic of a successful indirect approach. And the third category here is economy of force. You have to to win or achieve your objectives, reducing your casualties, saving time and resources, as opposed to the original position you found yourself in. That doesn't mean you get to do something for free. It just means that this option of the indirect approach has reduced your overall casualties. Your time may be saved, your resources, um, all kinds of benefits can come along with that in a successful indirect approach like that. All right, so let's do a quick recap, and then we'll get right into the Austerlitz thing. Napoleon, he's planning his invasion of the British Isles. Third coalition comes along. He can't do that. He moves to the east rapidly. He overwhelms the unfortunate General Mack at Ulm. Uh, really, this is a victory through maneuver rather than grand battle. And so he moves on to Austerlitz. At Austerlitz, Napoleon does something that is, he takes all my criteria, he turns them into confetti and throws them in the air. So he he is in Austerlitz. He has control of the Protzenites. He gives up both. He leaves both, and he leaves both with a bit of haste and disorganization, and he does this on purpose. he wants to reinforce a belief in the Third Coalition command structure that his army is spent. It is at the end of its logistical train, that it is prime for defeat. Well, in my category of disbalancing the enemy, this is a psychological disbalancing. He allows them to continue down this road of deceiving themselves in the belief that he is prime for a defeat. Okay? So let's take a look at the original plans of what the Third Coalition wanted to do. Now that Napoleon has moved to his new position across the Goldbach Stream, majority of his forces are to the north. He lightly defends his right, which is what he wants to do. He wants to influence the Third Coalition to attack, which they heartily obliged. In their plans, it's 4 columns. They move down towards the village of Telnitz, sweep back up north, defeat the French forces in detail, while General Bagration and the Imperial Guard hold the rest of Napoleon's army in place. That's their indirect approach, which I looked at this thing several times, and before it dawned on me that Napoleon and the Third Coalition at this battle were attempting the same strategic and tactical maneuver, except for Napoleon was playing chess, the Third Coalition was playing checkers. He was well in advance. Let's take a look at Napoleon's response. Well, first off, he wants to stop General Bagration and hold him in place. He's going to bring General Davout up to support his weakened right to stop the assault columns that were heading towards Telnitz. He knows that as those assault columns leave the Pratzen-Heist, that's going to leave the center of the coalition army sparsely occupied. The superior position will be sparsely occupied, and he will take advantage of that. And what's fun about reading in this book, he hadn't at this point in time decided whether he was going to envelop the left or the right of the coalition army, but he knew he was going to get one of them because he knew they were going to come down off that hill. And that is because they firmly believed they had him. And he allowed them, he did everything he could to let them think that they were picking the right strategy to beat him. All right, I'm going to take a second here. Let's look at that arrow pointing towards the north, towards where General Bagration and his forces were stopped by the French. Early in the morning, they discovered that Liechtenstein was in the wrong place, the 5th column in this. He was supposed to be supporting General Bagration's anvil sort of attack against the French. Well, the delay in him moving from south to north delayed the attack columns long enough to where it allowed Davout to reach the battlefield and have a significant impact on their ability to attack from the south, the Third Coalition. Now, I'm not blaming the entire defeat on this one moment, because there was a lot of fog, a lot of haze and mist in this valley that delayed the operation as well. It's just that it was one of those things that it was compounding. from the early morning, things begin to go a little bit awry. But no one's picking up on this, that things are not quite proceeding. Now, obviously, anybody that knows military history or have ever been in the Army like I have, you know things don't work the way, you can draw up a plan, but as soon as things begin to go in motion, things can go awry. Okay? Well, in this instance here, General Bagration's anvil becomes a feather pillow, and he gets pushed back. Not only does he get pushed back, he gets pushed back past his starting point, which uncovers the Pratzen Heights and the center of the coalition forces, which are lightly defended. All of these columns are already heading down towards Telnitz. The coalition has found themselves in a very bad way. Napoleon's response, once Bagration is gone, he knows that he's going to envelop the coalition left. Davout has made it to Telnitz. He has stopped those 4 columns. The remainder of Lane's corps and Besseret and the French Imperial Guard are going to move towards the Pratzen Heights. Once they reach the Pratzen Heights, they are able to fend off whatever responses the Third Coalition throw at them, and that includes the Russian Imperial Guard. So the die has been cast for those assault columns. They are now going to feel the full weight of the French response. As we look here at the original map of the starting positions of everyone, it took me forever to understand that both sides were doing the same thing. Both sides were trying an indirect approach. That's just Napoleon was watching the things unfold that he knew were going to happen, and the Third Coalition Command did not know what was Napoleon's response was going to be. Matter of fact, they thought the way they behaved as if he had no response to what they were going to do. And since I couldn't find an actual picture showing this, and I didn't want to just plagiarize one out of the Osprey book, I kind of put one together. All 4 of those columns have been broken up. They're all around that large pond, the Sachsenmeer, and very theatrical the way they play it off as if they all drowned crossing it, which they didn't. There were only a few hundred bodies ever found in it. Most of these forces, they get away. But it was such a devastating defeat for the coalition. And there were harsh terms placed upon Austria at the end of this. And this is what I think is the beginnings of the idea that he is not going to be safe until he takes Russia out of the fight for good. And I think this is where he begins to plan his later invasion of Russia. I think he's got the idea that if we don't do something about this, this is going to be an ongoing problem. The Russians are always going to show up and always going to cause problems. All right. How did Napoleon's indirect approach differ from the coalition's? Well, I think it's basically comes down to some very fundamentals. Superior training and logistics. They were able to march far and fast. They were highly trained. Like I said, they were training for the invasion of the British Isles. They were already at a heightened level of training. Napoleon's greater understanding of the psychology, he played them the way he wanted them to behave. He gave them every reason to do what they wanted to do. And he took advantage of their tunnel vision and their blindness. And thirdly, he was assisted by highly capable officers, not in, and that doesn't even talk about highly motivated the regular soldiers were. They were looking for a good fight. And I just don't think the Third Coalition understood what was coming. And they played right into his hand. So yes, this is a battle that shows both a successful and an unsuccessful attempt at the indirect approach. These are my reasons why one succeeded and the other one failed. I want to know what you think down below. Leave a comment, like, share, do all that kind of thing if you like this sort of thing. But I love this topic, and I am going to continue on going through these books, Osprey's campaign series. Or just what I'm going to be doing. This series is just it's about discovering how often this used, when it's successful, when it fails. I find it fascinating. The direct approach, we all know. You just blunder straight ahead and you pummel each other and until one breaks. Well, that's not always the best way. All right, that brings us to the end of this video. I hope you like this thing. Everybody stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you next time. And oh, by the way, next video, France, 1940. See you then.